Good morning again. We're here for the mobility panel at CitiSense to talk about smart, intelligent mobility. We have a great panel assembled this morning. We're going to have very short presentations by the panel members. They're going to use PowerPoint. And then we're going to open it up for discussion, either via questions here, or you can also use Twitter. But let's get started then. So please, Pekka, come to the podium if you are so kind.
Okay, is it this one?
Or yeah, both.
Okay. Okay, it's nice to meet you all here. I'm Pekka Koponen from Forum Helsinki. We are just a couple of introductory slides. So we are working. We are a fully owned company, non-profit company, fully owned by the City of Helsinki. We are working together between public and private sector, and of course the CitiSense and the city organization in general. So Helsinki City is a huge organization with a lot of departments who need also facilitation in between them. And I'm responsible for smart city project area, building a smart city portfolio. Mobility is one of the key things there, but I think it's good to emphasize here that open data, open APIs, the convincing the city that they should act as an ICT company. They have to build an ecosystem around them by being open, through open data and open APIs, but also like working with the community. So we have several activities towards developers, Helsinki developers meetups, apps for Finland competitions, and code fellows. But I don't go into details now because this is a mobility panel. But all these tools we are using also to build the case I will be present to you soon. And then of course international harmonization is important. We have a City SDK project we initiated and coordinate the City SDK cooperation between 8 cities in Europe. And there's also a mobility work package which Frank Resing will tell more detail about it because it's led by Amsterdam and Vaasa Society. But then I was asked to present a case or revolution from Helsinki, what we're doing there. And the challenge, Helsinki has around 1 million people living in the region, 600,000 in the city. But there's one specific problem concerning traffic. It's a peninsula. It's kind of a cul-de-sac. It's really tough to move in the center. And in addition to that, we're also building because port moved out, so there will be around 50,000 new people moving into the center. So we have a challenge how to tackle the traffic issues in old infrastructure. And by utilizing digital technology, so Helsinki published a plan early this year. It's not done by Forum Video. We will work on this field and help this to happen. It was the Finnish IT Internet Traffic Enterprises companies working on that field and the city together defining a concept of mobility as a service. So it got a lot of attention and it also some misinterpretations that it would be a car-free city. So it's not car-free, it's the city that you don't have to own a car. So there will be different kind of vehicles that you can utilize, and private car ownership is not most likely will diminish in the future. And it's called mobility as a service, MaaS, and now this is a proposal for action. There's some concrete steps that I will show later in the presentation. But first, one of the key things that you need to, now the mobility services are offered by each. It's pretty scattered, diverse. You have public transportation, bikes, shared wheels, a lot of taxi systems, Uber, but they all working separately, and very much relying also owning a car. So in mobility as a service, so you need mobility operators. And then you need service providers. So you can separate service producers who are providing train traffic or buses, taxis, and then you need mobility operators who are selling you the transportation service. And they are buying it, they buy it from these producers, and they are like productizing it, developing services for the users who are buying it from the mobility operators. That's kind of a key thing about the mobility as a service concept. And how does it look for the citizen? Sorry. So at the moment, citizens, they are, in worst case scenario, they are using both the public transportation, they need own a car, they need all the means of travel, and they pay separately to each of these. And having a car also in Helsinki in kind of a tough conditions, it's a lot of expenses from like maintenance, taking care of the winter conditions, and taxing, of course. So the revolutionary way of thinking this is like analog to mobile operators. That if you live in a city, so now you can pay for mobile operator for you get a package of data connection, SMS, talking time. So the same could apply to transport. You pay monthly package, and you get all your travel needs are fulfilled. So whatever you need for your life, so you can have sometimes you need a taxi, fast ride, you have to go somewhere with children, you have a lot of stuff to carry with you, so you always get the right kind of service to fulfill that need. And you pay only once, or one sum for that. And of course you have different packages for different needs. And that will lead to you don't need to own any of these vehicles. And of course the benefits are clear. It's much more effective way to organize the whole service. You need less vehicles, they are more in use, and also the expenses go down because they're professional actors taking care of the maintenance and providing the services. So the transport sector benefits clearly, and also of course city residents are living an easier, better life, and also most likely you get this at least with the same price. Most likely it's even less expensive than nowadays to maintain the quality of service. And of course this needs really, you need to go over a certain point and reach the momentum that this is really adopted in large scale. When it is, it clearly there's studies showing that it does work. We have one good concrete example already. This is not only talk, so there's a lot of it's happening on different fields. One key thing is to utilize data, mobile services. We are building a data platform for aggregating data, providing that to other actors also. But one concrete case is called Kutsu Plus. It's a demand-driven transport service run by Public Transport Authority in Helsinki at the moment. And this kind of vans that can take 8 people are controlled by intelligent central system, which is selling the rides. You can order a ride from a bus stop to another bus stop anywhere in the center of the city, and this system will find you a right vehicle for that ride. And it's also auction. It provides you 3 alternatives. If you're really in a hurry, it's more expensive. If you spend a bit more time, so then you pay less. And you share a ride with the other 7 people. And that's something that we are running. It's functioning, and the quality of service is quite good. And I have also some figures. This is for sharing the. If you share the slides, so you can read more in detail. But it's this couple of key things. You order by using mobile, internet. You pay there. When the ride comes there, so you just jump in, tell your code, you get the ride, and you jump out. Very easy user experience. Also well-equipped vehicles. You have Wi-Fi, a lot of space to work if you need to do that. And there are studies how that it scales, but it gets more effective if you have more vehicles. So now we have 15, and there will be more closer to 100 or over 100, so that it gets more efficient all the time. So it's ready for scaling. And I think environmental impact, this is clear that there's a lot of impact. Also, it kind of there's interesting studies that if you take 10 20% is off the traffic, so in any city the traffic jams are gone. So if we get this system working, so that affects the other traffic also. And here are some figures. So clearly, it's a nice concrete pilot, a lot of learnings, and now it's taking off. So these are monthly figures. So each month we get like you can see that it's now starts raising rapidly the user base. And now next challenge is to get investment to get more and more vehicles because clearly the kind of the word of mouth is out and user experience is that good. So it's really gaining momentum in Helsinki. We are happy to follow that, and of course you can build a lot of services on top of this. You can this can be utilized in all, like it for somebody can offer services for tourists. So you can use this kind of service using APIs and selling this as part of a service, part of a bigger service package also. So that's what we are working on. And but I'm happy to tell more if somebody's interested. And I think this is it. And this is my son. We are going every Friday. We use Kutsu Plus to go to his hobby, and it's also it's so fancy experience. The car waiting in front of his school, and he's kind of a fan of Kutsu Plus also. It's kind of a nice. The main point is this really works at the moment, and it's nice to see how it's kind of taking off in Helsinki. But I think that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Pekka. Frank, if you can start coming to the podium, please. Hold on. I'm gonna look for your.
It's the first.
Yeah.
Okay.
All yours, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Frank Kresin. I work at an innovation agency in the Netherlands called Waag Society. And we develop technology for social innovation. And today I will talk about one of our projects that we co-do with some of the people who are here. So Pekka from Virumvirium, but also Hanna, who's sitting there. Maybe she's the coordinator of the project, and their boss is sitting there too, listening closely. It's Virumvirium. And I will talk about the problem of mobility. In this mobility, we have a lot of different actors in a very multimodal world. So there's public transport, biking, the car problems. We have a lot of people walking, and in the future we'll have the drones, of course, as well. We have police, we have fire departments. There are a lot of actors going on in mobility at the same time, and this has a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of problems. And the problems they have in common that people are very much looking for data to solve it. Even the mobility as a service concept is working closely on data. It's on real-time data, it's on data about demographics. If you have to plan your work, you have to integrate a lot of different kinds of data to come up with meaningful projections and good services. However, data has a problem, and therefore we have a problem. Because the data that's available is mostly locked up in silos, it's in different file formats and data formats. It's very hard to find. It's impossible to understand for computers. And what this means is that it's very hard to build applications and solutions on top of them. There's just very little real-time data, coming up more and more, but it's very little. It's lacking proper descriptions, and it varies from city to city. And this means that all these data assets are currently underused, and solutions that are made once, but they're never reused. So it's very hard to scale. That's where the City SDK project comes in. The City SDK is the City Service Development Kit. It's a service development kit opening up data resources for cities, starting to be on top of the existing resources and making it very easy for people to build applications on top of them. And these applications, by their nature, can scale to whichever city implements the City Service Development Kit itself. City Service Development Kit is working on 4 levels. First of all, it's on a vision level. So it knows and it wants to pursue the fact that if you open up more data, you can solve better problems. The second, of course, is harmonizing data. So it means if you open up data, you should do it in the right way. You should do it in a way that's the same in several cities. The third is we made several open source reference implementations, and these reference implementations are then implemented in more than 8 cities worldwide, or in Europe now. And the fourth level is if you build then applications based on top of that APIs, of those APIs, they will easily travel from one city to another. This is the slide that already was shown, but it's an important slide because it shows you that 8 cities started at the core of this program, the City SDK program. And in 3 of those, there were specific applications or domain areas chosen. There were 3 domains, being participation, mobility, and tourism. And they were developed in one city and then replicated in 2 more, making it absolutely sure that these APIs can be transferred from one city to another. And we've been working on and developing the Smart Mobility API. So an API, who knows what an API is? Maybe I should have asked that sooner. So not so many yet. An API is a programming interface. It's something that computer programmers use to develop their applications on. So every programmer in the room would know that as soon as there is an application programming interface, that he knows how to access the data in the right format. And that's what we did here. So Smart Mobility is trying to solve the problem of the multiple sources of data and mobility and making it easy for developers to build applications on top of that. And in a sense, it's very simple. We take a base layer of the city and we identify all the objects there. So it's the moving objects and it's the objects that are fixed. And then we identify the kinds of data that are available there on those objects. And we stack those data layers on top of each other. We connect them so it gets easy to go from one object to all the data sources that are available on this specific instance or thing. And then we build our application programming interface on top of that. And this means that programmers can access that and in a very easy and simple format get all of the data that's available in the field of mobility for the 8 cities that are currently implementing City Service Development Kit. This is an architecture, it's maybe the most technical part, so please bear with me. What is the essence of this figure is that you start here, down, you use the existing data sources that are already there. You add a small layer, it's an open source reference layer, that harmonizes the interfaces. So it means that you can very easily access all of these data sources with simple queries. You add intelligence, you can either do that as a city or as a third party, and then applications are made on top of those. And the whole system is currently working. We have a website documenting the Mobility API, where programmers, but also civil servants, can find all of the information they need to start developing. And this is the way that programmers like to look at the data. I'm not sure about you, but if programmers look at this, they think, hey, this is something our computers can understand. So it's the only way that they can make sure that they can make applications that actually work on the data. So it means that if you have data in this format, then you can tap into the creativity of the developers in your community, in your city, in your agglomeration, whatever. And this is what we did. We did in all of the cities that were part of City Service Development Kit. And on top of the data sources, they made several demo applications. This is a simple open data glove, giving all the real-time insights about mobility data that is available about the cities that participate. We made a smart parking application, trying to reduce the numbers of hours and fuel wasted by looking for parking spaces. So this was built on top of the City Service Development Kit. We made several applications to make navigating the city more playful, and these applications were then transferred from one city to other cities. And the most recent addition is that for city planning and city planning in the field of mobility, it's important to know how far you can go in 10 minutes, in 15 minutes, in 20 minutes. And this is an analysis tool that is now in beta. It will allow you, that has all the available options for the transport in the city. And then in real time, you can see how far you can come where. And this is important if you choose a school, if you choose where to live, but also if you put a new road or another piece of infrastructure somewhere. So this will be available too. The thing I stop is that while there's many data sources available, this is often very, you cannot see it as a citizen. And you also cannot see it as a civil servant. And this is why we built an open source city dashboard that integrates different data sources about the city. And it's not going for KPIs, but it's going for CPIs, city performance indicators. And it will aggregate the data and then show you the current state of your city. And City SDK is feeding into that. There's lots more to say about this because it was a 3-year project and this was 7 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can come to me or to Hannah, that was the project lead partner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll have Carlos Melo from Chile, so please, he'll speak in Spanish. Please get your translation equipment, those that need it. Muy bien, Carlos.
Thank you.
Podio es tuyo.
Hi to everyone. As Arturo said, I'll speak in Spanish because I want to be sure that you receive the correct message, okay? I'm sorry for that. Lo que yo vengo a contarles hoy es la experiencia que desde el Ministerio de Transportes de Chile hemos desarrollado en el campo de las Smart Cities para la movilidad. La primera idea importante que me gustaría destacar es que nosotros estamos, por lo menos en Chile, en los últimos 6 o 8 años, nos hemos dado cuenta que las ciudades y los ciudadanos han cambiado de forma muy veloz, muy rápida. Primero tenemos ciudades que van volviéndose cada vez más complejas y más dinámicas. Tenemos, y en Chile esto es un fenómeno muy potente, ciudadanos mucho más educados y empoderados que hacen mayores exigencias al Estado, que es un fenómeno que anteriormente, por lo menos en Latinoamérica y especialmente en Chile, no existía. Y estos mismos ciudadanos tienen una percepción de que el Estado, el gobierno, es muy lento para resolver sus problemas, que todo anda lento, que las cosas no se concretan a la velocidad que deberían concretarse para lidiar o trabajar con la complejidad que las ciudades van adquiriendo. Entonces, frente a estas condiciones, la pregunta que nos hicimos nosotros como ministerio es cómo enfrentamos este nuevo escenario, sobre todo desde el punto de vista de la movilidad. Y las ciudades inteligentes, las Smart Cities, aparecen como una herramienta que nos permite a nosotros trabajar con estos fenómenos y tratar de lograr, junto con la ciudadanía, junto con las universidades, las empresas, soluciones que vayan mejorando las condiciones de movilidad. Para lograr utilizar esta herramienta, nosotros tuvimos que hacer un cambio que dentro de los gobiernos, y particularmente en Sudamérica, es un cambio muy importante, y es darnos cuenta que como gobierno es imposible resolver los problemas nosotros solos. Necesitamos la participación de la ciudadanía, la participación de las universidades y de las empresas. Eso no es algo que tradicional. A lo mejor en otros lugares del mundo ya lo dan por sentado, pero para nosotros no es algo tan antiguo. Es un enfoque nuevo de ver las cosas. Entonces lo primero que desarrollamos fue una definición que nos servía a nosotros de este concepto de ciudades inteligentes, de Smart Cities. ¿Y qué definición tomamos? Hay muchas definiciones dando vueltas por ahí, pero nosotros principalmente creemos que una Smart City es una ciudad que es diseñada para las personas, que a través del trabajo colaborativo, herramientas de innovación y tecnologías como herramientas de apoyo, implementan soluciones sustentables para proveer mejores servicios para el transporte, pero también para cualquier otro servicio que los ciudadanos necesitan recibir. En esto, quizás puede sonar un poco arrogante en cierto sentido, pero en Chile, en particular en el caso chileno, en el Ministerio de Transporte nosotros somos una especie de pioneros en aplicar estos conceptos para solucionar problemas. Y por eso usamos la definición de para el transporte, para la movilidad. Pero la verdad es que esta definición aplica a cualquier otro campo. Entonces lo que hicimos es tratar de estos conceptos integrarlos al accionar habitual del ministerio y tratar de involucrar a todos los participantes que tenían que ser involucrados, ¿ya? Para tratar de entre todos mejorar la movilidad. ¿Qué hemos hecho hasta hoy? De partida desarrollamos una estrategia. No teníamos ningún tipo de estrategia. Y desarrollamos y construimos una estrategia de forma participativa y abierta con la ciudadanía, tratando de fijar cuál es el camino que nosotros queríamos tener de aquí al año 2020. Y esa estrategia se plasma básicamente en contar con instrumentos que nos permitan implementar proyectos de ciudades inteligentes que nosotros no teníamos, comenzar con el proceso en las 15 ciudades más importantes de Chile, registrar a nivel nacional todas las iniciativas innovadoras que tengan que ver con movilidad, desarrollar planes de sensorización, algo que puede ser tan trivial o tan común en otros lugares, nosotros necesitamos desarrollarlo, desarrollar servicios de información colaborativa, intentar en el largo plazo transformar a Chile en un referente de este tema, donde hoy en día estamos muy, muy lejos. Les voy a contar básicamente de dos proyectos bien particulares, uno de ellos en el cual nosotros hemos trabajado con el apoyo y la colaboración del Banco Mundial, donde hemos empezado a desarrollar estas ideas más en profundidad. El primero lo llamamos MuéveTT. ¿Y el MuéveTT qué es? Es una oportunidad que nosotros buscamos desarrollar para mejorar la movilidad a través de la co-creación y el desarrollo de una cultura de innovación abierta y colaborativa. Aquí el cambio de paradigma es muy importante porque los funcionarios de gobierno, como les dije anteriormente en Chile, no tienen esta cultura de la innovación abierta, del trabajo colaborativo con el gobierno, o sea, con la academia, con la ciudadanía, con todos los demás actores sociales. Entonces, básicamente lo que intentamos hacer a través de una metodología es construir una cultura de innovación abierta con los empleados públicos que trabajen de forma colaborativa con la sociedad civil, las universidades y las empresas en la ciudad de Concepción. Concepción es una ciudad del sur de Chile que tiene aproximadamente 1 millón de habitantes, el Gran Concepción. Esta iniciativa, la verdad es que terminó en un concurso de ideas, de donde nosotros tratamos de plasmar o obtener soluciones que ya pudiéramos aplicar para los problemas de movilidad en la ciudad. Les voy a contar más o menos dos ideas que a nosotros nos llamaron mucho la atención y que nos permiten a nosotros darnos cuenta cómo logramos levantar problemas que a lo mejor desde el gobierno no se veían tan claros y cómo también las soluciones que aparecen son soluciones muy creativas, muy inteligentes y que calzan plenamente con este concepto. Primero, un problema que uno puede ver a lo largo de todo Chile es el vandalismo al que se ven afectada la infraestructura del transporte público, los paraderos. Esa situación como la que ven en la imagen es muy común en Chile. Paraderos rayados, en mal estado, que duran muy poco. Que obviamente pueden provocar problemas de inteligencia. Un equipo de jóvenes de una universidad propuso una solución de un paradero inteligente, modular, sustentable, construido con materiales que prevengan este vandalismo, que además pueda entregar información al usuario y que tenga un costo similar al que tiene un costo de un paradero, de una parada de buses tradicional. La verdad es que a nosotros desde el Estado diseñar todo esto no se nos nunca quizás hubiésemos llegado a puerto. Estas personas lo hicieron en un par de meses. Otra aplicación que es muy interesante, que también resultó ganadora de este concurso, es la aplicación Despierta. Básicamente estos alumnos generaron usando datos abiertos que también nosotros como gobierno por primera vez poníamos a disposición de la ciudadanía para que desarrollara aplicaciones o las soluciones que ellos se les ocurriera, crearan. Desarrollaron una aplicación que usando la posición GPS a través de los teléfonos móviles te avisaba cuando tú estabas próximo a llegar a tu parada en transporte público. Puede ser muy básico pensar en usted, pero en Chile es muy importante porque las personas aprovechan su viaje en transporte público, que a veces son muy largos, de una hora o más de una hora, para dormir. Entonces esta aplicación resuelve un problema que los ciudadanos tienen, que muchas veces iban durmiendo para llegar a su trabajo y pasaban de largo y llegaban tarde. Y esta aplicación, una aplicación muy sencilla, soluciona este problema. Entonces este tipo de ideas son ideas que nosotros desde el gobierno nunca hubiésemos levantado, pero que resuelven problemas reales de las personas. Un segundo proyecto que es muy interesante es el Transporte Informa. Transporte Informa básicamente es construir o levantar de forma colaborativa información con un enfoque integrado que le ayuda a las personas a tomar decisiones de movilidad, ¿ya? En ciertas ciudades de Chile, las decisiones de movilidad no son solamente relacionadas con el transporte público, con el estado de los buses. Hay ciudades donde hay incorporado ferries, el uso de pasos fronterizos, el estado de las carreteras por las condiciones climáticas, y no teníamos ningún servicio donde esta información se entregara de forma coordinada. Y la verdad es que con muy poca tecnología, pero con colaboración, nosotros logramos levantar un servicio que reduce la incerteza acerca del estatus de los servicios o de la infraestructura de transporte. Básicamente esto es con colaboración, aquí no hay mucha tecnología detrás. Lo importante es que múltiples actores se ponen de acuerdo, comparten información y esa información la ponen a disposición de los usuarios. Este servicio hoy opera en 2 regiones de Chile y esperamos de aquí al 2020 tenerlo implementado en todo el resto del país. Como pueden ver, son 2 experiencias que son bien sencillas, pero que para nosotros implican un cambio cultural que es importante, que básicamente ese cambio cultural es poner a disposición o trabajar con la ciudadanía para construir las soluciones de movilidad y a través de eso transformarnos en una ciudad inteligente o transformar nuestras ciudades en ciudades inteligentes. Eso es la experiencia que teníamos por contarles. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Carlos. Now, Susan, please come to the podium. You are the last presenter.
Sorry. Oh, my microphone's working.
You're ready to go.
Great. Good morning. Well, I'm really happy to be here at this wonderful session, at this wonderful conference. And thank you very much to the Arturos and to the World Bank and CitiSense and to the city of Barcelona. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about where new mobility meets smart cities. And I'm talking about new mobility in a sort of a similar way to smart cities, only the mobility component. There we go. So just some basic assumptions. I think everybody assumes
Can
this.
you speak closer to the mics because there's a feedback if you're so far away.
Oh, maybe, okay. Is this better?
They have to have it very loud so that it doesn't work.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, my basic assumptions that, and we can talk about this afterwards, but that basically that new mobility is catalytic, that it's transforming cities and economies, making them more resilient and sustainable, bridging the mobility divide, making things more equitable. And actually, something that we don't talk about quite so much is driving a global industry transformation and a whole range of new business models and new industry opportunities. Around mobility, that doesn't seem to be the topic of conversation quite so much until recently. Just a quick word on SMART. It stands for Sustainable Mobility and Accessibility Research and Transformation. It's at the University of Michigan, and it's a cross-university, cross-discipline initiative to accelerate sustainable transportation system implementation, so not just the individual components, but the whole system, and then advancing the related emerging new mobility industry. So we're a little bit backwards in terms of what a university usually does, because we start by collaborating and meeting. We don't start with research. We start by collaborating and meeting and finding out what's on the ground, and then we apply and develop research and education and tech transfer and new conceptual frameworks and platforms and tools and things to support those needs across the board. And we are global. We're based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, near Detroit, near the belly of the automotive beast, but our main work is global, but it does include the US. So we work in India, South Africa, Brazil, the Philippines, Europe, and China. So, and just another ground truth, the very simple way that we're thinking about new mobility is that it's about moving people, moving goods, and moving less in ways that are cleaner, greener, safer, healthier, and more equitable. And because, I don't know if you've seen some of the really long definitions of sustainability, and then you get mobility in there, it gets really like not a media bite. So this is the kind of way we like to think about it. And the other reason I like to throw in the goods movement and the moving less is because we often forget about moving goods, and that's taking up so much room, and it's really actually also a lesson for how we could better move people movement because it's much more systems oriented. And then the moving less side, that is transportation. Tele everything, working at home, telecommerce, all telemedicine, teleeducation, and that's actually then supported by some of the smart city stuff like smart urban design and local production and distribution, even urban agriculture. So I think it's important for us to think about all three things, and then it increases the amount of innovation that can be done as well. So what we're talking about is, similar to what we've heard, multimodal, IT-enabled door-to-door transportation, which is basically more options that are more connected. So that's the basics. And I think, is there anyone in the room that doesn't think transportation's at a tipping point at the moment? Okay, good. We're all on the same page. So I'm going to stop talking about it. Well, I'm not going to stop talking about it, but I'm going to show pictures at the same time. We had the very great fortune of the Rockefeller Foundation supporting us to develop something called the Moby Prize and Platform. And the prize was really a subversive plot to crowdsource all of the new mobility innovations in the whole world, because we were seeing that there were great things going on everywhere, and not just in the places where there's sort of more advanced transportation. And it was so exciting, and we can learn and adapt so much that we wanted to gather them and then start talking to them and ask them how they could be supported in advancing this new mobility startup space and the entrepreneurial and enterprise space. We also work with big businesses and investors on the same side, but you can see you've got services, products, technologies, designs, and a whole range of things. So, when it comes to the smart cities on the information side, you have so many different opportunities to inject information. We don't always think of all of them. These are just a few: wayfinding, journey planning, fare payment, traffic management, security, the whole range, and then freight, and especially the seamlessness. So again, some quick context. There are certain types of monocultures. Basically, the future comes to different places in different times. So around the Detroit region, we have one particular automotive narcissism kind of a monoculture. Other places have walking monocultures where they don't have too many other options. Other countries have multimodal, but they're not actually optimal multimodal. And then, so I think that's why we're all kind of tending towards how do we make this into an actual ecosystem that works together, sort of like after a fire or a flood, where the poplar trees grow up on their own and you've got this monoculture, but then all these things start to jump up and be created. Right now, I think we're in that stage where the other cool things are happening, but they're not talking to each other yet. So that's where, if we look at it, in the form that this interactive multimodal transport system, we would think transportation is flat. And you have more of a whole systems approach. On the technological metaphor, it's similar to desktop, laptop, printer, camera, everything connecting, and us being able to customize and use them at the same time. So why are all these people in our ecosystem thinking this way? We know the basics about the doomsday bad stuff, why we're doing it. We're trying to solve some problems. And actually, urbanization I don't see as a problem, because I think it makes us think smarter. We're doing it because we can. So like the bad stuff, we're doing it because we have to. And this is, we're doing it because we can. Information technology is really the next transportation infrastructure. It's enabling all those things I just listed, and with, you know, a fraction of the price and in a much more nimble and flexible way. And we're also doing it because we want to. Apparently the millennials, the 18 to 35-year-olds, are deciding that they don't actually necessarily need to own a car if they can have access to one and if they have their social networks. And it doesn't sort of represent their identity quite as much as it did when some of you people were children, because, you know, I'm a millennial. No, I'm just kidding. Finally, this is the thing again. We're really not yet fully thinking of this as the huge, gigantic economic opportunity it is. And I'm not talking about it as just an industry, but as a job creator, as a cause of regional economic competitiveness, as something that helps us save money. So it helps big business and big government optimize. So you're sort of not putting a BRT over top of a subway station or things like that. If you're optimizing and doing the multimodal, and for individuals, saves money. It's a much more reasonably priced approach. And this emerging industry, which is far beyond manufacturing and far beyond transit, to include all these new services and to include other industries we don't sort of think of, like, you know, it's basically manufacturing, IT, tourism, logistics, real estate, a whole range as a cluster that needs to kind of come together. And then we're seeing that in, you know, we're supported by Ford Motor Company, and Bill Ford has talked on TED Talk about how they're thinking of themselves not only as a car company, but also as a transportation company. So this kind of economic conversion. And our prize that I shamelessly plugged earlier, we made a new one this year for cities and states that were encouraging a culture of innovation in new mobility. And Sao Paulo won for opening their opening their data, but also a country applied, and it was actually about to decide whether it was going to be its own country the week after that they got the award. But they have actually new mobility enterprise in their national constitution. And they have major investment in developing new mobility, industry and economic development, and entrepreneurship in sustainable transportation. So it's pretty exciting. It's really starting to happen, but not everywhere. So the big trick, I'm just going to finish off with, so I talked about the Mobi platform to support enterprises and to support the clients of those enterprises, like big cities, big businesses, and other entrepreneurs. But the trick is, how do you do this? So we at Michigan, we do a whole bunch of platforms and tools. Again, you know, we've been doing this for a while, so in 7 minutes it's not so easy. But I'm going to focus on one. These are our platforms, which we can talk about later. But there's one that's called the four-step accelerator. And basically it helps leaders and stakeholders in regions apply whole systems as opposed to trying to decide between one or the other. So I don't know if has anyone been in a frustrating transportation conversation before? Just put your hand up. Yeah, I mean, what I'm used to is that you have a 2-hour meeting, and an hour and a half in, you've only been talking about the problems, and then somebody says, "Oh my goodness, we were supposed to talk about solutions," and then we begin to decide, make a laundry list, and then someone says, we have to prioritize. This isn't about prioritizing. This is about how do you apply the whole system. So basically we have a 4-step approach, and I think you're going to get this PowerPoint, to convene all the leaders across the board in business, government, and academe, and NGOs, map out the multimodal grid, overlaying all of it so people see what's actually there, and then identifying the key things that are going to allow users and goods to be transported seamlessly and multimodally throughout the city. So I'll end there, and thank you very much.
So thank you to our panelists. I now want to open it up for discussion. We're running a little bit late, so in the interest of time, please ask your questions. If not, I have a backup question, but please, the audience, gentlemen here.
Do any of the expositors has any experience with carpooling using mobile applications?
Why don't we take a couple of questions? There was only another hand raised here. The gentleman here.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, maybe to discuss this idea of transportation at a tipping point, and why do you think that's the case?
Third question, and we'll leave the panel with those three. Another one? Okay, those two, please. In the same order in which you presented.
Okay, is it working?
Yes.
Hopefully, okay. Carpooling, of course, there are carpooling services. I think more interesting is even like sharing cars, that you can even share. I think what mobile and digital and all the new tools bring you, that you can even share your own car. But that those kind of services exist. That you like let them to put a mobile phone locks to your car, and anybody can use it. There's a new kind of operator who's operating that system. So that sense, yes. But we can talk more in detail later if you.
Frank?
Can I ask you the second question first? Is that allowed in your? Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Because the transformation tipping point, I think is really interesting. I think there are three things happening at the same time. On the one hand, we got bigger cities and much more people, so we have bigger problems. On the other hand, we have a lot of technologies. Some of them are physical technologies, and a lot of them are in data technologies. And the third one is that we see a shift in a culture. And the culture is obviously geared towards, and now it's the first question, sharing, not owning. And because we have all of those three in place, we'll find ways to solve it.
Carlos?
For the first question, we know that the tools exist but in South America there is a cultural problem with shared cars. It's more a cultural problem than a technological problem for the case of South America.
What's the problem?
Yeah. The problem is a security problem. You don't have confidence in your neighborhood, you know? That is the problem.
Trust.
Yeah, trust problem.
Sue?
Okay, like they said, and I guess I would only add that there are also new business models emerging, and also what you said about new constraints, which aren't necessarily constraints. The spatial constraints and the resource constraints means that people are sort of more inclined to maybe work together, where they wouldn't before. They would want to win, or they would want to prioritize as opposed to actually collaborate. So I think the tipping point for me is that we could get fearful about it and kind of say, okay, well, we want to kind of just stay inside and enclosed, or we can open up the opportunity and say, how do we work together and bring all the resources together and move forward in a way that serves many more needs with a fuller and more connected range of solutions.
The lady there, question?
I was wondering, did you have any problems with privacy issues when implementing your projects, and how were these issues solved? Was new legislation passed or anything like that? Was this brought to the judicial system? How was it handled? And then, is there any impact evaluation already done on any of these programs that could show the costs and the returns of the investment? That's a good piece of information for promoting this type of investments in the developing countries where we work. I'm Veronica Rafa. I work for the World Bank.
Yeah, okay. First of all, the legal aspect. So yes, there are issues. For example, in Finland, if you zero rights, so then you are taxi, and it's illegal. You can't do it. So it's that kind of things, and that there's a process of changing the law, that there wouldn't be that kind of obstacles anymore. And then another thing is a national plan to tax driving, having a GPS in each car, which is, of course, it brings up the privacy issue. And is there trust towards the government and who controls the data flow. And I think that's legal issues have to be solved, but then I think much more important is that we create a culture of trust, and it's not about legal issues anymore. Then you need to kind of trust the actors who are there. We need new kind of operators and new companies, enterprises. Somebody makes money from that. So that's in. But we're working on that, and I'm happy to share the results. But it's ongoing process and a lot of obstacles there.
Yeah, I think the privacy issue is really important because it gets so easy to know literally everything about all of us all the time. Not only by governments, but also by companies, of course, and even by your neighbors, maybe. And I think the only way there's two things that should be done. First of all is governments and companies should stop thinking that they serve us best by knowing all about us all the time. That's a mind shift. And the second is to make that a reality, is that we should stress for privacy by design solutions. So it means that the solutions about knowing where your car is or where your neighbor is, or smart meters, for instance, all these things that capture data, they should be made in a way that actively precludes use in ways that they were not intended for. And we see that starting to happen, and that's encouraging. Second question too, or is it? Yeah. So the second is the impact part. Well, first of all, I will talk about data. And first of all, there have been numerous studies by the European Union saying that the amount of money that people will make from opening up their data is huge. It's in the billions, and it's there for grabs. Unfortunately, it's hard to reach. But at the same time, on a very practical level, we've seen that the efficiency of governments opening their data using city service development kits has improved. For example, they saw that there's more efficient ways to clean the road. There's more efficient way to spend their money. So that's happening, and we have some evidence for that.
Carlos?
No.
No comment?
No.
Sue?
I have no comment on the privacy.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well handled. I loved the question about measuring this because there was a big expression going around, you can't manage what you can't measure. And the thing about integrated multimodal IT-enhanced door-to-door transportation with tons of modes, services, products, technologies, some of which are informal and really work well, measuring that, and I think what happens is people go, oh, that's too hard. Let's go home and have a beer. And so then the measuring gets done on the things like the single occupancy vehicles and putting clean fuel into it, which then causes the urban sprawl. And I mean, I know I'm simplifying, but you get the point. So really, it's funny because I was talking to someone from the World Bank at the World Economic Forum last year about one of the head statistics guys. And he said that they have the exact same challenge in terms of if you want to measure the benefits of a system, how do you do that? So, it would be really neat if the World Bank could think through how do we actually begin to say, we know this is better because it's taking a whole bunch of stuff and the whole is better than the sum of the parts. Whether it's from the transportation point of view or from the economic benefit point of view. And we could say, oh, economic benefits of BRT, economic benefits of train. But that's not, then you have these things arise where people would say, well, the economic benefits of car sharing are not good enough because they're only marginal, then we don't need them. But we need them because they're the missing link. They're the last mile. So it would be so amazing and cool if not only the World Bank, but all people that think about any kind of measuring could come up with some way of at least estimating so that we can do this integrated stuff a lot sooner and with a lot more support.
Any other question, please? Let me follow up on this last point about the benefits. Ideas of what conditions are needed to meet at the city level so that benefits happen, even if we cannot measure them, so that some of the expected benefits, institutional conditions, technological. Is it just purchasing the gadgets? Let's call them gadgets. What else is needed?
It's a good question. I'll start that it's not about gadget anymore. That's one of the reasons for tipping point, that the technology that's cheap, and if it's not at the moment, it will be. Everybody can have access to that tech, and but then it comes back to that's a tough question. What is really exactly needed? But I think please we believe in openness. There's a space for new actors coming in, and how somehow we have to open up possibilities for disruptive business also. So that's, I think that's one key thing, that the whole ecosystem should be as dynamic as possible, because otherwise it's too slow, and the old actors are protecting their
I totally support his points. I think what's needed as well is setting up a very clear and motivating vision. That's what governments should do very much. So setting a goal that is maybe at the moment highly unattainable, like becoming a zero carbon emission city in 10 years. But that vision will stimulate everybody to work together in this, if you have this open ecosystem that you're stressing. And nice is that it doesn't cost anything, the vision. Huh?
But that vision has to be a precise vision with data, with date, with quantities, not an abstract vision.
Yeah.
I'm very confident with that.
Okay. I'm just going to read my list. In that case, in no special order, we need to remove the barriers to innovation. So in other words, take out the rules, make architectures and frameworks, and have people deal in their partnerships and develop really strong ecosystems, because we don't know what we don't know, and a technology might come out next month that's going to really blow our minds. So rather than sort of having something, yes, it needs to be the clear vision and kind of getting down to the points of what things it needs to solve, but we can't choose the technologies or the solutions, because then we're not opening ourselves up to all the great solutions. And I would say also expanding the range of public sector involvement. So right now we think the planning department, the infrastructure, maybe the energy, but we need to add economic development, tourism, finance, social services, all the things that relate to transportation. And the other thing that is a little bit farther afield is to say, if we redefine from the goal of mobility, I say mobility because people get it more, but if we redefine it from mobility to access, how does this support meeting needs? That's going to really improve the public sector involvement in this.
Next question, please. No, please. No, another question. Yes, here, gentleman in front.
There was a lot of comments about involving the communities and getting people to develop new applications. I think your question about how you enable these things to surface, I think that's one part. But the second part I thought was also about how do you sustain it going forward? Is that something that requires a private sector to develop a business model for it? Or do we see it as more of a new form of service that governments need or cities need to provide going forward, having the information to improve people's lives?
In any order, whoever wants to go?
Yeah.
1 minute left.
1 minute left?
In total.
Yeah.
In total. Okay. It's tough. I don't know. We haven't found the kind of it's interesting. What is the public sector? Where is the private and public sector border in this? There's investment needed from both sides, but we don't know yet where is the line.
One part of it is having new procurement systems in place.
Yeah,
Procuring not the systems that you think, and not detailing out everything in the beginning and then wanting somebody to build it, because even if they build what you want, it will be not solving the problem. So you have to procure for solutions, and there are some examples of that happening around the world.
No.
I was just going to say, in terms of sustaining it, that's where, again, what you're saying about the clear vision and actually showing the government agencies showing that they're committed to this clear vision by supporting, by removing the barriers, like what you're saying, and by giving funding and incenting it with sort of support and indicators. And the one phrase I want to leave you with is public-private innovation. I just think the word public-private partnership strikes fear in the hearts of so many public and private sector people. And that's because it has so much about, we come to the end and we have to sign on the dotted line and then we're locked in. And what we do with this process that I didn't get too much of a chance to explain is that basically we have to start working earlier before the actual project launch to together define the challenges, because you can have these great situations where You know, public sector might not know that there's somebody that could develop an app for that this afternoon. Or they might not know that, hey, you know, Cisco or IBM, hey, we did this thing that we did over in public health, we could apply to this. The idea of much more public-private innovation. I've done that mapping work, the implementation work in 22 major cities. And in most of the cities, many of the people had not met with each other, even though they all had the same goals. So it sounds really simple, but getting people into the same room, and we were lucky because we're from a university, so we're super neutral. You can tell how neutral I am about sustainable transportation, right? So we're a neutral party, but they would all come, and they would be there with each other, cross-sector, developing these opportunities. When that culture begins, it then maintains a little bit better. It's not guaranteed.
Time is relentless. Becca, Sue, Frank, Carlos, thank you so much. Please thank them, give them a hand. Thank you so much.